no amount of mechanical optimization will make the difference because there are things outside of my control and the funnel's control that still influence what happens in the funnel, but that I can't mechanically tweak. So if you think of it as with the metaphor of an ecosystem, that ecosystem consists of living organic things that come in and out of that ecosystem. And there are things that grow in that ecosystem. And it has its own ecology. It has its own cycles of life, whatever. It almost sounds like the Lion King, the circle of life, whatever that is, right?
You're listening to Copy and Conversion, where we share expert strategies to grow your business using the power of compelling sales copy. You're about to learn from the best minds in marketing how to be more persuasive, make more sales, and increase your impact with copywriting. And now your host, Brad Wages. Okay, today I'm talking with Sam Woods. Sam is a copywriter and growth marketing specialist with an impressive roster of clients in over 37 different markets. He's worked with companies like HubSpot, AWeber, Agora Financial, Authority Nutrition, Predictable Revenue, and a bunch more. So some big names there. Sam is a true expert in copywriting and sales funnel optimization. And I'm excited to have him on the show today. Sam, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you, Brad?
Doing well. Just trying to keep cool here in Austin. Kind of had a heat wave for the past few days. So got the AC cranking on full blast while I'm doing my work.
Yeah.
You're in Boston area, correct?
Yeah, just south of Boston. And we've had, I don't know if it would classify as a Texas heat wave, but it's certainly a heat wave up here with about 2 weeks of just 90 plus degrees every day, really humid. And so I'm trying to stay cool and drink a lot of iced coffee, so.
Good strategy.
It's really hard to be productive when it's hot outside and you don't have AC.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It'd be pretty much impossible here, but
I bet.
So, hey, Sam, I want to jump right in and kind of ask you, first of all, about your origin story. So I know all copywriters usually have a sort of interesting way that they discovered copywriting and got into the craft. So what does your origin story as far as becoming a copywriter look like?
I don't think I have an origin story. And I say that because there was no epiphany. There was no aha moment. There was nothing that spoke to me from the sky and told me to do this. It came out of a mix of necessity and opportunity. And I am a naturally very curious person. So when I came across copywriting, what it was, or just online marketing is where that started, I just figured, why not? Why not do this? So I think at this point, we're in 2020, and I got into all this. And by all this, I mean online marketing and copywriting. I got into it back in I want to say end of 2011, something like that. It escapes me. I don't even know anymore. And I was one of those people who thought, you know what? I know marketing. I know how to do stuff online. I should just learn some marketing so that I can help or sell services to local attorneys, local plumbers, and local businesses. So I kind of got started with that, started offering all kinds of online marketing services to random businesses, and did that for a bit and built on websites, did all the social media stuff. I was just curious, right? So I started on that path, and through that, eventually I came across copywriting and discovered what it was. But there was no turning point. There was no moment that some people have. It's just something that I kind of slid into and got into. And then, to make a long story short, from there I came across Joanna Weave and Copy Hackers, and that's where I got my first training or the first kind of books. Because a while back then, or not right there and then, but early on, she started selling ebooks. She had a series of like 4 or 5 ebooks that have since been retired, and she brings them out every now and then. But I started with those books, and then eventually she released courses, and I bought those and learned copywriting that way, conversion copywriting, and started applying that to the work that I did. And over the years, I've built an agency, and we moved on from local businesses to working with B2B SaaS companies, B2C companies, D2C as they're called now, direct to consumer, e-commerce, lead gen companies who need leads for various stuff, financial markets and health. So it's been a mixed bag with different clients. But in terms of origin story, like there's nothing exciting other than just being curious and coming across something that looked pretty cool and then trying it, and then here I am.
So kind of a natural progression from more or less jack of all trades online marketing to specializing, and then focusing like pretty much totally on conversion copywriting.
Yeah, and I want to say like it's when I first started off, it was more like I was a one-eyed man in the kingdom of the blind, whatever the expression is. Like I just knew a little bit more than most, and from there, from just having that small advantage, which is not really an advantage, it was just a matter of time until someone else knows more than I do. But from starting with just having a basic understanding of marketing and knowing how to do things online, because I think being born in the '80s, I grew up with the internet, or in my formative teenage years, like the internet was there. And so I've always used the internet. And so just having that start, just knowing how to navigate online gave me a head start, which is funny when you look at it now in 2020. But yeah, there was nothing in particular. It just kind of happened. And I just took opportunities that came to me. And then here we are.
Yeah. So you have worked with quite a lot of different clients, like you just said, in a bunch of different markets.
Yeah.
So what have you learned from working in so many different niches, so many different verticals? How has that sort of shaped your understanding of copywriting and marketing?
I don't know if I can summarize 9 years or whatever of stuff that I've learned, but I think what it comes down to at the end of the day, what I've learned is that it all depends. And what I mean by that is you can set up a funnel, optimize a funnel, write copy, do whatever you do for a client in one market, one type of business with one type of customer. And very little of that translates over to other businesses and markets. Some of the core fundamentals apply, and that's the backbone of conversion copywriting and direct response copywriting. So those fundamentals always apply, but they're fundamentals on psychology and so on and so forth. But the one thing I've learned is that the moment I start assuming that what I did for another client, I'm just going to apply that to the next client and hope for the best, or see if that works, or assume that it works, it doesn't work. So in that sense, I'm more of a consultant. Like there are some copywriters who will have their process and their models and the way they know how to do stuff, and they just apply it over and over again and it works. But those people tend to work within the same general market or type of business. And so you can find stuff that works, but very little translates over to other clients or businesses. What I've found with optimization, especially, which has been my specialty of my agency, has done funnel optimization across acquisition, retention, and scale, is that experiments that we run for one client will not translate or map directly over to another client. We just have to look for the fundamentals of what we did, and then from there spawn up new experiments and new ideas. And I would say that there's virtually nothing over the past 9 years that I can say is the number one lesson other than the phrase "it all depends." And so that's been the biggest thing, I think, because there's a tendency for a lot of, when people learn copywriting or online marketing, like there's a reason why you're being taught things that they tell you are the same. And this is from most books or courses. Like they'll teach you, people, whoever they are, they'll teach you something and it worked for them and probably worked really well for them. But if they only teach you the tactics, then you won't get very far eventually. Like those tactics stop working or they stop being effective. And so as long as what you're learning is based on core sound fundamentals, then you should be good. But if there's anything I've learned over the past 9 years, is that most tactics being taught are not going to help you. What's going to help you is walking into whatever situation, whether it's for your own business or for a client, walking into that situation and knowing the fundamentals and then finding new ways to apply them. And whatever that looks like, it depends.
That's a great point. So as far as the different verticals that you work in, you do a lot of work in SaaS, correct?
Yeah, not so much anymore, but I have.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a big part of our client base for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have sort of like best practices that you've accumulated over the years within verticals, or do you sort of approach every project as, blank slate, new experience, new learning process, like for each individual client?
I mean, we developed some sense of things we can try, right? So in the agency, we certainly have, I don't know, a bag of tricks or whatever you want to call it, with things we know could probably or maybe work. But it doesn't mean that we'll apply it in the exact same way to every client. But we know, like, we have a sense of what to try. Like, if we're looking to optimize, let's just pretend an onboarding funnel or an onboarding process of some kind, then we know there are certain things we can do to that process to encourage adoption and get people to use the software more and eventually turn into paying customers. But I don't know if I would call them best practices because things change so much. And I think once you're in the online marketing space for more than a year, you start seeing things come and go. So certain tactics work for a while and then they stop working. Certain channels are really good for a while and then they stop being good. And for our agency, our processes involved stuff we knew that we could go back to for testing. But the biggest, I think, breakthrough in my thinking came when I changed my mental model from templates and scripts and best practices to looking at anyone's marketing and sales or a system for acquiring customers and keeping those customers. When I changed my perspective on that from whatever the common view is, that it's like a machine is an engine, and then you turn that into, you optimize parts, and then that engine spits into or spits out customers. Everyone talks about growth engine and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
But it's that mental model will only get you so far, because if you built a machine or an engine that easily breaks, then you'll spend your marketing energy and time fixing an engine, and engines have limitations, right? They can only be as good as you can make them, which is not the best they can be. So when I switched my mental model and my metaphor for it, that was probably the biggest breakthrough. And I'd say that, if anything, then informs how we look at a funnel or a copy project and the things we look for, or that I look for, and whatever elements that I then try to optimize. So I know that I'm not trying to evade the question, but I just don't believe in best practices.
Yeah, no, that is an excellent insight. And I definitely want to explore the metaphor that you use now. I'm pretty sure I know what you're alluding to, and some I definitely want to dig into a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, Sam, as far as particular clients, particular projects that you've worked on, are there any that stick out as like kind of memorable milestone wins?
I don't know. I thought about that. And so I'm under NDA, so my client, so I won't discuss specific results for any particular client.
Sure.
But wins, I don't know, I'm going to sound jaded or whatever, but it's, we've been able to get, or I've been able to, and whatever the size of my team has been, we've been able to get results for just about all of our clients one way or another. But it's also very transient, because if you have a landing page that you optimize and you bump it from 20% to 40%, double the conversion rates, that never stays at 40%. It's always so dependent on traffic sources, time of year, marketplace, trends, the messaging that hooks people one day will not hook people another day. And so milestones, yeah, we've been able to double conversions, triple conversions. We've been able to make several companies a lot of money. I think if I look back at what clients have told us, the funnels we've put together and optimized have generated, north of 20 something million, right? So it's a Pyrrhic victory, in that, like, if you're not making money as a copywriter, or if you're not helping other clients make money, or get leads, if you're that type of copywriter, then like you shouldn't be doing it. So my milestone is the fact that I've been able to do this for as long as I have, which is not that long compared to a lot of other people, but it's beyond 5 years. I think the average lifespan of a conversion copywriter is probably somewhere close to 4 years from what I've seen in the market. There are people who were around when I got onto the scene that are not around anymore. And there are people who've had their own either freelancing gig or their own business of some kind, but they got hired and moved on to larger companies. So your time spent as a conversion copywriter has an expiration date. And so to me, the milestone is the fact that I've been able to do this for 9 years. And I don't think you're able to do it for that long unless you're producing results. So I think, yeah, there's no particular client story that stands out to me as an amazing win. Because there's been many, and there's been a bunch of failures too, right? Like not every single test that you put out is a winner. Not every funnel is a winner. And you just have to have the right mindset for finding what's going wrong so that you can fix it or tweak it or optimize and change that so that a dead funnel becomes a winning funnel. But I mean, there's been many clients that I work with in different capacities, whether it's been one-off or long-term, and they span, like my client list is pretty long, and that's just a partial one. Because one thing I did early on is that I decided to be the guy behind the scenes. And even now, like I reluctantly agreed to a podcast because I don't really like doing them. I don't have anything to sell anyone. You know what I mean? Like it's just, there's no reason for me to promote myself. So the few that I do, I think my main point with those is that it's not so much about what I've accomplished. It's more about what I can say that might help someone see things differently. Right? Like it's weird for me to talk about my client and client success because I don't, it doesn't, like, I don't know why I would do it because I've worked by referral only for so long that the clients that come to us, they've come by referral. And so I don't talk about what I do very openly for that reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like we offer a level of confidentiality that I think a lot of clients appreciate.
Yeah, that's something that I find very interesting is the fact that you are kind of behind the scenes. I don't think you have an email list.
No.
You don't have, you're not doing content marketing. I mean, you post on your blog, but you're not.
Every now and then, yeah.
Yeah, every now and again. It's very like fundamentals of marketing. You don't necessarily have like a niche, and you definitely don't have products or funnels. So it's, from what I've seen, Sam, you are very much like focused on client work. And I'm interested, and I think you just touched on it, like what does your client work funnel look like?
It's ironic, right? Like the agency work that I've been doing and in different capacities, it's been focused on helping other companies' funnels, but we have one, or I've had one for the longest time, but it's invisible, if you want to call it that. And it's more so a process than like any particular, like people don't click through pages to get to us. There's nothing to buy. There's nothing to fill out in that regard. But we've worked as a by invitation only and by referral only for years. And the reason I did that is because I looked at what people were doing to promote their business online, or other copywriters or other agencies or whatever. And I realized that, well, you can definitely try to do the social media thing. You can do the podcast thing. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do all kinds of public marketing, and you can get clients that way. But I made the decision to not pursue that because I would also get a secondary audience that I had nothing to provide for. Like I had nothing to sell them, which is other marketers, and the subcategory of that being other copywriters. I have nothing to offer other copywriters. Like I think most of the things that I've learned, other copywriters can learn by doing the work and by taking the correct training for it. There's nothing that I have that is so unique that I could offer other copywriters that would warrant me to have a list for copywriters, other marketers. I never had anything to sell to other marketers or copywriters. My The only thing I've ever had to sell is a specific skill set and results to clients who are not copywriters, right? And so that's why I don't have a list, because I would invariably attract other marketers, which is they'd get on my list, but the stuff I write about would have nothing to do with them. So they just unsubscribe at some point. And so instead of having a list that is half dead in terms of people just unsubscribing because there's nothing on it for them, and instead of diverting my energy toward creating offers or doing something for other marketers, copywriters, I took that energy and time, because it's finite, right? And I took that energy and that time and focused it on honing a skill. And uh, the real reason why I did it the way I did with referral only is that it cuts my client acquisition cost down to zero. So it doesn't cost me anything to acquire a client. I don't have to spend the time doing the podcasts, doing the blogging, doing the social media. All of that takes time, and it's one way or another you're paying for it. Whether you're doing it or you have an assistant doing it, the hours you spend are hours that you could have spent on something else, right? So we don't spend any time hunting or casting a wide net with all these other marketing tactics. And so for us, the funnel is very simple. It's that we have different strategies that we use with our existing clients to encourage them to give us referrals. And when they do give us a referral, we just make sure that we ask the right questions of that person or company. And we then extend them an invitation to work with us. So even if they get a referral, it's not even like a done deal that they're going to work with us. If it's a good fit, if I think that we can help you, client, whoever you are, and if I think that we can actually make an impact and take your landing page from 10% to 50%, like if I thought that your landing page, the ceiling is from 10 to 15, I wouldn't work with you, because it wouldn't be worth the money you'd pay us. Just wouldn't justify the small bump that I think your landing page is capable of. So I need to see that there's a good opportunity for us to help you in a meaningful, impactful way. And if we're a good fit on everything else, then I extend an invitation for that client to work with us. So the way that happens is just that we treat our existing clients in a very specific and good way so that they're encouraged to give us referrals. And when they do, on average, if you're a good fit, you go from first day of being referred to becoming a client. On average, it takes 34 days. It costs us nothing to acquire that lead. It doesn't cost us either in money or time spent doing something else. And it just helps us build a reputation amongst a small clientele, but a clientele that also, or the kind of work that also is rewarding, because we also do a lot of commissions and royalties on the stuff that we produce. So we don't just get paid a flat rate fee. We also get paid commissions and per lead sometimes, depending on the kind of funnel that it is, right? So it just helped me build a small compared to other agencies, whatever is all relative, right? But small, tight agency that did good, solid work for a select clientele without having to do all the other things that people do. Like I don't want to spend my time on Twitter. I don't want to spend my time on Facebook. I don't want to spend my time on LinkedIn.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, right. Like I didn't want to do it. Again, some people do it and they're successful and they get clients. All the more power to you if that's you. But I'm just saying there's another way, and I chose that other way, and I'm fortunate that I was able to make it work.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy. Part of the reason I like it, Sam, is just the fact that it's so different from what most people, aspiring, like big name copywriters who like see the stars of, being successful as a copywriter. They want to get into it to create courses and to create a brand and this and that. But you have sort of made a conscious decision to avoid that path and purely focus on the work. So I see you as somebody who is like honing their craft day in, day out in the trenches, doing the real work versus the kind of social media, brand building type stuff. So I think that's a very cool choice that you made.
You know who Ryan Schwartz is, right?
Yeah, definitely. I consider him a buddy.
Yeah, well, he didn't do exactly the same, but he was in the background for the longest time, right? Staying somewhat anonymous, you know. People had to seek him out to get him to work on his projects, but he was able to do his thing that way, which is similar to mine, not the exact same way, but similar to mine. And I think, there's and I'm not going to name names because there's just no reason to, but there are a lot of things that copywriters are being sold today is nothing more than biz op and nothing more than the person who's selling it to you for them to make money. That's it. It has no other effect, no other purpose other than to find a way to have you separate yourself from the money that you've earned. And I'm the biggest conversion sales persuasion guy there is, probably. I love that stuff. I have nothing against it at all. But you have to understand that the idea of copywriting has been sold as a biz op for years. And when you sell it as a biz op, as a business opportunity, then you attract people. The way you attract people is also how you have to keep them. And people are being fed this idea that I can go from flipping burgers one day to then writing $1 million sales pages the next day, and it's just not true. Right? You can make that jump, but it takes a lot of work, right? And so I think people are attracted to the idea of being
story.
Huh?
Like the archetypal story.
Yeah.
Discovered Gary Halbert letters, and 2 weeks later I was making.
Yeah, but that has its origin in Albert Lasker and the way he essentially sold America on the idea of America, right? So there's a lot of psychology behind the archetypical stories that we hear, that we tell ourselves, that is out in the marketplace. It goes way back. It goes way past the early 1900s when Mr. Lasker was active. Mr. Lasker essentially popularized the rags to riches story, which has been used by everyone ever since. And so there's an attractiveness to the idea that you can have a name and have a brand and be known and be, whatever, have an audience. And for anyone who's doing that, I don't begrudge them that. I'm not saying they're doing something wrong or that they're doing it wrong. You do whatever you want to do. I don't care. I'm just saying that there's a lot of things that we're being sold in the marketplace that simply doesn't work, or it's someone telling you the winning lottery ticket numbers because it worked for them once. And so I'm wary of that stuff because I see it, and I'm sure you see it, and I'm sure anyone who's half decent as a copywriter, you can see the tactics being used. And so I have nothing against it. I don't mind people selling stuff to other copywriters. I think if you have the gift of teaching and you have something good to teach, then you should do it. But I'm not that guy. I'm not gonna have the courses. I'm not gonna do the ebooks. Eventually, at some point, will I ever put out something? I don't know, maybe. But I chose a different path.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think that's it's super cool, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. If you can focus on the work, then you can keep getting better and better and better and really perfect the craft, rather than selling the dream, over and over again.
Right. Yeah. I'm living my dream probably maybe more so than other people who are selling the dream. But I have no need of selling my dream to anyone. You know what I mean? I'm happy with what I've got. I'm satisfied knowing that I've been able to help a few clients get really good results, that I've been able to employ people so that they have a job and can provide for their families, and that I've been able to do the same for my life. And I'm good with that,
Definitely. So, Sam, what does your team look like? Is that Stimulead? When you say we, is that what you're talking about, your agency?
Yeah, which is sold or in a partial sale. So
okay.
I don't own, or I own the name and the company structure, but I have had a partial sale of my agency so that I've exited out of it. I'm going to keep the name. I'm going to keep that business structure because I had it set up and it has a history. And maybe at some point I do something with it, but a much, much larger competitor of mine, or not direct competitor, but we're in the same space, lead gen space. They've acquired most of that business. And so what I have left is my own IP, intellectual property, the name, and then a handful of clients that I keep doing work for.
That's cool, man. Congrats on the sale. So what does your current team look like?
It's myself and another person, and that's it.
Okay.
At the height, we were 12 people plus me.
Oh, wow.
And but I think on average, I'm going to think back. Like on average, at the peak, we were 12 people. Then I made some changes because we had to move into other industries I didn't want to move into. And so I think on average, we've been around 5 people plus me. But yeah, it's over the years, I've been able to employ about 41 people, something like that, plus myself, either full-time or part-time. And I think, like I said earlier, everything has an expiration date. My agency as a model had an expiration date. I think from here on out, I'll just be doing things differently, right? And we'll see what that looks like.
I'm just now making my first hires, and it's like learning marketing, learning copy is one thing. That's its own journey, its own process to get good at it. But then that is like a whole other, side of the business that it's got its own unique learning curve for sure.
Yeah.
Onboarding new hires and the delegation process and all that.
Mm-hmm. And I did that for a while, but then I realized that I didn't want to be the dashboard manager. I didn't want to be for your business to grow at that point, you have to let go of a lot of the things that you used to be doing, right? And so you need to step into a different role. You need to seriously step into the CEO role, or you need to hire a CEO and CMO and everything else and grow the business, and you remain involved in another way. And so I saw that path, and I realized that I can do the business owner thing, I can do the CEO thing, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I can do it, but I don't like it. So I chose to scale back from 12 people to something smaller so that I could do the kind of work that I enjoy doing.
Yeah. You'd rather actually be doing the research, doing the writing, doing the optimization. Is that right?
Different parts of it. Yeah. There are stuff about each of those areas that I like and other things that I don't like. So I just focus on the things that I do like, which is ideation and some research and thinking things through. And I think that's what I've been focused on, because I'd rather do that than look at a dashboard all day and manage those numbers,
Yeah, no, I hear that 100%. Sam, let's talk about growth marketing ecosystems, which is, I believe that's a term that you coined.
Maybe, yeah.
The first time I had seen it, I think was on your website. And on your website, you say, when you adopt a systems mindset about your marketing, it unlocks endless opportunities and potential for growth. So let's dig in a little bit there. As far as those systems, the systems that are in your mind, your approach, your systems-oriented approach, how do you implement those systems in client work? What does that look like in terms of what you're writing, what you're designing for clients?
So it's a big jump from thinking in systems to then what it looks like on a page. But essentially what it is, the metaphor that I use and have used for a while for myself and for the work we do is to not think of a client's, let's say they have an acquisition funnel to acquire customers, right? And it consists of whatever is in it: pages, emails, ads, something else, all these different elements. It doesn't really matter, but whatever they are. And most people will look at that as an engine, or they will think of it in terms of engineering terminology and engineering metaphors,
Like
which is not a bad flywheel, maybe, yeah, whatever. Like it's a mechanical view. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people who prefer to think that way, and they are able to get results thinking that way and looking at that through that lens. But this one other thing that I've learned over the years is that there's so much unpredictability in any given funnel that when you think you have it figured out, you don't have it figured out. So There are limitations to thinking of a funnel as an engine with mechanical parts. It's a good starting point. So you have a grasp of what it even is that you're looking at. And there's input, there's output, and there's stuff that happened to create that output, pages, whatever. But to get to the point where those funnels can actually scale, especially, but for them to grow and to improve conversion rates. And so if I have a funnel for acquisition of customers and every month it's giving me 100 customers, I can do things, I can optimize the mechanics of it that will take it from 100 to maybe 130 new customers. Some people are very happy with that. But for you to get from 100 to 200 or beyond, you can't think of it as an engine anymore because there are too many unpredictable moving parts that you have no control over. You can influence them, but you have no control. And this is where an ecosystem comes into play. And whether it's a growth ecosystem or growth marketing ecosystem, I never really cared, but ecosystem is a leading metaphor. And it's a simple idea that if you look at that acquisition funnel as a field instead of possibilities, and if it helps you to think of something like that as a tree, go ahead. I don't really think of it that way, but like you might think of it as a tree. There are things you can do and to prune that tree to help it grow in a certain direction, and you can influence how fast it grows or how slow it grows, and you can kill it, right? So the way I looked at it is that for me to look at this funnel differently and to get it to go from 100 customers per month to 200 customers per month, no amount of mechanical optimization will make the difference because there are things outside of my control and the funnel's control that still influence what happens in the funnel, but that I can't mechanically tweak. So if you think of it with the metaphor of an ecosystem, that ecosystem consists of living organic things that come in and out of that ecosystem. And there are things that grow in that ecosystem. And it has its own ecology. It has its own cycles of life, whatever. It almost sounds like the Lion King, the circle of life, whatever that is, right? It sounds, yeah. But it's and it's kind of like that in a sense, in that everything has a cycle. Because, like I said to you before, if I get a funnel to go from 100 to 130 new customers by doing mechanical tweaks, it doesn't mean that funnel will stay at 130 new customers every single month from there on out, because there are things that affect that number that a funnel, a limited view, cannot fix. So there are things like market trends, right? Like if your funnel is geared toward converting customers because of a particular market trend, when that trend is over or passing, then no amount of mechanical tweaking to your funnel will save it or make it convert better, right? But if you think of that funnel as existing within an ecosystem where you know that there are outside forces that influence what happens in that funnel, then you know that, okay, those outside forces will present new opportunities for that funnel to be different and to convert better. And so you can see trends when they come and you can make adjustments accordingly. If all you had was a mechanical, narrow view of a funnel where you look at, let's say, an ad to a landing page to an email sequence, and if you're going, this is what I'm optimizing and only this, and you do all the tests that people tell you, you do all the best practices that people tell you, use all the templates that people give you, those things have a ceiling to their effectiveness because they existed in a different context years ago that's not the same as your context. So this is why I don't like best practices, because a best practice might get you from 100 to 120 new customers, but it won't get you to 200. For that to happen, you need to have a different perspective of that funnel. So if you think of your funnel as existing within an ecosystem, you can better anticipate changing desires that you can channel into the funnel. You can anticipate trends. You can anticipate or see or discover talking points, the way the market changes itself. You can anticipate the kind of offers that people are converting on. Like marketers are, for the most part, we mimic each other. Like that's part of the mindset of a marketer thing, is that we have a preference to mimic. And so when everyone is doing webinars, or when one person is doing a webinar, then that format spreads and all of a sudden everyone's doing a webinar. But those webinars 6 months later don't convert anything, right? Or they might be hard to even run on, let's say, Facebook traffic, as Facebook all of a sudden does not like webinars, as an example, right? So that's what I mean by having a mechanical engine type view, which is that you're so focused on the mechanics that you don't see the bigger picture that will tell you or show you what pivots you need to make. Because a funnel is not a single thing that you run once and then it runs forever. There's no such thing as an evergreen funnel. That's a myth. Because things change. People's needs change, people's desires change, the marketplace changes, conversation changes in the marketplace. For a while, everyone's going, oh crap, I need analytics. No one now goes, oh crap, I need analytics. Everyone knows that you need analytics. So the conversation is no longer, hey, do you know what analytics is? Here's how to use it. The conversation now is, how do I use the analytics that I have to make better decisions? And so there's a maturity and a sophistication that happens in any marketplace. And so an ecosystem will help you see those bigger things and help you come out with new ideas for how to optimize a funnel and know what messaging needs to change, know how your offer needs to change, know what the marketplace in general is doing. Because if your competitors start copying your funnel, then your funnel is going to die really quick. And for you to be able to pivot and to offer something that's unique to your company, whatever you're selling, the only way to know what to do is to think beyond the mechanics of an engine and instead look at it as an ecosystem.
That is an excellent insight. That is awesome. So it's like a broader view, more holistic, all-encompassing, and considering the context outside just the steps, the steps of particular customer journey. It's looking at everything together.
But it's more than broader and holistic, because you can have a broader view of a bigger engine and it still won't do you any good, right? It's a different way of thinking about your funnel or website or landing page, like whatever the part is, that is different from an engineering type thinking or a mechanical type thinking. And so, and this is probably where the idea of an ecosystem probably will never be a popular idea, because it's not the most intuitive probably idea, right? It's something that I've developed that works for me, and I have no idea if that idea will work for anyone else. But there's a reason why it's an ecosystem and not just a bigger machine, right? Because an ecosystem if you think of an ecosystem, it's easier to see that there's a ton of unpredictability. There's a lot of randomness, and things grow on their own without you having any control over it. And you have animals and other things coming into the ecosystem, using it in a different way, and then they leave to another ecosystem. So it's accounting for a different worldview than just a mechanical worldview. So it's, in that sense, it's more than just holistic. It's just a different way of thinking altogether.
Yeah. It's a totally different paradigm. It's kind of poetic too, which I really like. So Sam, who would you say have been some of your biggest influences when it comes to copywriting and marketing? And what did you learn from those folks?
AWeber and Eugene Schwartz. So AWeber, because we have a long history of working together on several different projects over the years, and I first learned copywriting from her, conversion copywriting specifically. And so I owe a lot of my skill set and whatever I've been able to accomplish, I owe her a lot. And so I'm very appreciative of what she's taught me. And the thing that I've learned, I don't know if there's one thing or a couple of things from her that stand out to me. It's more so the whole, she just doesn't stop, if that makes sense, right? So she doesn't rest on her accomplishments. Like, as far as I don't work with her day to day, right? So I don't know what she does day to day, but my impression of having talked to her and having done a course with her is that she just doesn't rest on her laurels and doesn't coast on whatever she has done. Like, she's, as far as I can tell, she's always learning, always trying, always pushing the envelope. And so that to me has been a huge motivation and inspiration, in that I could have stayed with one type of a customer and one type of market and one type of thing, my niche or niche, whatever you want to say, and eked out my space in that. But I think what I picked up from her is that that's a great way to get awful really quickly. And so you need that constant pursuit of not necessarily mastery, but pursuit of pushing the envelope and seeing what else works. Right? Like I remember way back in the day when I worked with her in the agency she had then, like Snap Copy, I would write something that I thought was pretty good, and she thought it was pretty good, but then she would spend a couple hours and revise it and edit it. And then I would see how she took decent copy that she thought was good to then become really good. And seeing her work that way and seeing her evaluate every sentence and word and the page or whatever it was, I learned, I think, more from watching her work that way than I did from like doing anything else. So I definitely know her a lot. And the other guy is Eugene Schwartz, who's dead, but his book, Breakthrough Advertising, is a tremendous influence and help. I don't know where he got this idea, because I think the idea of awareness and sophistication, two concepts that he at least wrote into a book format. I think those ideas have existed throughout time, but he crystallized and put into words two concepts that have made all the difference in the world in terms of funnels, because there's no one funnel that works for everyone. Is really it comes down to two things: awareness and sophistication. And you must have both. And most people look at awareness and think that's it. Level of awareness. Are they product aware, solution aware, problem aware, all those stages? But the one other category that I think most copywriters ignore or miss or whatever is sophistication and market sophistication. Because you can have the perfectly written piece of copy as an ad or a landing page, and it can hit all the things. It can be a textbook example of what good copy is. But if you put that in front of the wrong, or if that message is timed wrong in the overall market, and if you put it in front of the wrong people, it won't convert. And it can be everything it should be. It can be the perfect specimen of what copy is. But if you get the sophistication level wrong, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's such a fundamental concept. It's
Yeah.
Breakthrough Advertising. Actually, I got a copy from Joanna when I went
Very
through
cool.
The mastermind she did a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Every time I read through it, I pick up something new. Every single time. It's just so dense with incredible, concepts and takeaways. It's an amazing book. So I'm curious, you're a fan of Eugene Schwartz. Have you read his other book? I don't know how many.
Brilliance Breakthrough.
Brilliance Breakthrough. Have you ever read that one?
Yeah. I actually, the first time I read it, I got it as a PDF from a friend of mine 7 years ago. And I think Brian Kurtz only put it out in book format a couple years ago. So I had a crappy scanned PDF version of it on my iPad when I first went through it.
That's what I have.
Yeah.
I have a PDF of it.
Yeah. No, for me getting the physical book a couple years, I think he published it like 2 years ago or something like that. That was really helpful. So I've gone through it again. And there's another one that I come back to, because it's not necessarily copy specific skill development, but it's writing development.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of copywriters miss, like before you do all the fancy conversion copywriting stuff, like you should have a sense of how to write. And this is going to sound probably heretical, but you should understand how to write an essay. Because if you can't present your arguments in a simple essay as to why someone should buy something, your sales page will be crap. Like you need to first understand why someone should buy something. And the easiest way to outline that for yourself is in an essay. I'm not talking about the classical 5-part essay, whatever they teach you in high school, college, whatever it is. But like a simple essay where you state your claims, your promises, and then you back it up. And if you don't have a crystal clear understanding of what your sales argument is, your sales page just won't be as good as it can be. So I think a lot of people discount just the simple fundamentals, the simple things, and they just, I don't know, ignore it or whatever. But those things can make a huge difference. Huge.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I've had a copy of that for a while, and I actually have not read it. So it's
Yeah,
worth going through and reading.
definitely.
Yeah. I've just got so many copy and marketing books, like, dozens and dozens that I'm still getting to. So
Don't read too many. Start watching TV series, and start watching TV series for the sake of scenes. And I don't really have any particular TV series. There are really some really good ones out there, but there are some TV series that are better than others at setting a scene where there's something happening. And um, the one key question that I've started asking myself the past couple of years when I write something is, I ask myself, what scene is this in what movie?
mm-hmm.
And when I ask myself that question, it's easier to bring a different sense of vitality to your copy and a different sense of purpose to it, where all you're doing is giving people mental scenes anyway, right? When you write about a feature for a SaaS company, you're you're like a director in that you're directing a scene where your software exists and the person who you want buying it exists, and they need to step into an alternate reality in their own mind where they picture what it's like to use your product. And so what I'm doing now more than anything is that I'm watching TV shows, especially sometimes movies, but TV shows especially, to see how they set up scenes and what scenes are really good. A lot of them are crap, but like there are some scenes that can be really good in terms of just helping you bring the dramatic back into the copy. And by dramatic, I don't mean like drama, like teenage drama. I'm talking about the theater characteristic of drama, where there's opposing forces and there's tension and there's pulling and there's movement, right? So it sounds really esoteric, but I think that's more than anything the past few years that has helped me really, really, really well to write better copy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't watch a lot of TV, but as far as, sort of cinematic writing, that's
Yeah.
absolutely something I've focused on for a while. I think my first sort of aha moment around the power that's there came from learning from Rye and one of his courses with copy hackers. And he has a very sort of cinematic screenwriter type approach.
Yeah.
And I started implementing some of that in like my sales letters. And recently I've been doing mostly advertorials for cold traffic funnels that are, the entire thing is like, it's a story.
Right.
It's like, a transformation story. So the sales argument is totally embedded in like a scene.
Yeah.
It's when you can kind of learn the fundamentals and the frameworks that go into storytelling, like actual storytelling, it can be such a powerful vehicle for copywriting and conversion.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I think one reason why I found that powerful is that time and time again, when I've done customer interviews, voice of customer research, and so on, the people who have been the best customers can always point to one specific thing they read or they had a thought that essentially converted them on the product or to buy it. And it always comes down to one simple thing, a sentence somewhere that made it click for them, or a way something was described that they went, yes. And like the funny thing is, once that happens for someone, they don't need to read the rest to convince themselves. They're already convinced. And so they will, and this happens to all humans, they will justify what they're feeling by looking for confirmation in your copy. And what I love is when I know something that I wrote, and I don't tell people that I write some things that I write because it exists in the world and they don't know that I wrote it. But I love it when I'm doing interviews with customers and I know that they read something that I wrote, and one thing in what I wrote made them convert. And me knowing that makes it worth it, because I knew that like for a brief moment anyway, something I wrote affected someone else's behavior in a good way. Like they're buying because they're getting value out of it, but like in a good way, they're thought process turned things to one sentence, right? So I think, and that's what scenes do, right? One scene can change a whole movie or a whole TV series. One way of saying something can change your perspective completely on the whole thing. And so when I write, I look for that to get to that point. And 8 out of 10, it doesn't happen. But the 2 times that it does happen, that's how you go from 100 new customers to 200.
So what you're talking about there is it's the aha moment, right? Something that you focus on and really emphasize in the 10X Funnels course here with copy hackers.
I think, and I'm using basically yes. I'm using the terminology aha moment because it exists in the marketplace and people know what that is. But if I was to use an internal word that I use for myself when I sit and write, I think of it as the volta in a sonnet. And that's the turning point in a sonnet, right? So I don't want to go into it now because we're not here to talk about my poetry, but if you look up how a sonnet is structured, at least English ones, there's a volta in there toward the end of it where there's a new perspective that comes in and it either reframes the whole sonnet or it's like a 90-degree turn. And so I think of it as writing to get to the volta internally with myself. And I never said this to anyone else before. You're the first one that I'm saying this to. But for the past 4 or 5 years, I've thought of it as writing for the volta as opposed to the aha moment. But I'm using the aha moment just because that's common terminology. If I start talking about volta, very few will understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, in any given funnel, and especially in the course that I partner with AWeber Copy Hackers with, 10X Funnels, no matter if it's for acquiring the lead or getting the first customer or getting those customers to come back and buy again, if they don't get to the volta or the aha moment or that moment when things make sense, then you're going to have a hard time converting them, right? So and it sounds esoteric, it sounds big, it sounds, I call it a revelation, that they need to have a revelation of how this is now, how everything now changes. So the feeling you want them to have is to look at your stuff, read your stuff, and at some point you want it to go, wow, this changes everything. So they feel new hope. And some call that aha moment. I call it a revelation. But in the 10X funnel course, which is really 4 small courses in one bigger thing, it covers the 4 areas of a funnel or a business, I should say, that moves the needle. So it's acquiring new customers, it's acquiring leads, is getting those customers to buy again, and it's re-engaging with leads or customers that have gone cold. So those 4 areas, so there are 4 funnels for those 4 areas, and those are the only 4 funnels that you need in any business. Anything else is just superfluous, and you can build other funnels if you'd like, but those are the 4 core functionalities of those funnels. And in those funnels, I talk about the revelation or the aha moment, and I intentionally made them the way they are because if I just taught you how to do a webinar, then you would have a 3 in 10 chances of getting that webinar to convert. Because the reality is that most webinars don't convert in most markets. But if I taught you how to create a lead generation funnel that has the fundamentals in place of people experiencing that aha moment, then the format can be anything you want. It can be an advertorial to an opt-in. It can be a short video. It can be a webinar. You can structure, like the format I give you in that course, you can just turn into any, or I should say the structure I give you, you can turn into any format you want. The format that I give in all these funnels, it follows a particular persuasion structure, and that in turn can be used as an article, video, webinar, or anything. Because I know that over the course of the past 9 years, a webinar will come and go as a useful way of converting people. In most markets, it just never works. And so I wanted to give people something that I knew is time tested, it's proven, and it'll convert today, it'll convert 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because the simple fundamentals are there, and it gives you the maximum number of possibilities. Because if I taught you just how to do a webinar, you couldn't turn that into an editorial and landing page. Like, it just not the same structure or format. So that's why I did it the way I did it. And I think, have you been through it?
I've done the first module. I guess I would classify it as like a cold traffic funnel.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
I've gone through that. I'm probably 75% of the way through it, but yeah, what you're describing, the sort of format agnostic approach has been really, really cool, because it's clear that it's not the structure that sells. It's the messaging that just happens to be, the structure is the vehicle, but the messaging is the thing that converts people.
Yeah. Some audiences, all they want to consume are videos. So if all I gave you was how to write a landing page, then how would you turn that into a video, right? Like, if I'm limited to the format of it, then it does you a disservice. And the other thing that I hope that people get in those courses too is that getting it launched, if you're going from scratch, getting it launched is the hardest thing. And that's why I included the optimization lessons too, because no funnel ever survives first contact with reality. And so that's why the optimization part is, in my opinion, the most valuable part of those modules, because that'll teach you how to take a funnel that's sort of converting to really converting, and something that's converting okay to get from that 100 new customers to 200, or 100 new leads to 200 new leads. And I think that's going to be the key for anyone who goes through it, which is, how do you optimize it? And I've given people essentially a decision tree where if your funnel is converting at X%, then you do this. If it's converting at Y%, then you do this, and on it goes.
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that very few people are out there teaching. Like there's a lot of people who teach the format, landing page, sales letter, whatever it is. There's very few people with the experience and understanding how optimization works that are showing the formula for how to do that. So it's very cool course. Sam, I think we're probably right at the stopping point here. I've got a bunch more I'd love to talk with you about. I've really enjoyed this so far, but
good.
Based on what you shared about yourself and your business, I don't think you are probably so worried about giving people a place to come check out your work, or you don't necessarily have like an email list or anything. So I mean, if
you Google me, you can probably find me, right? I'd say, like, if anyone cares enough to go look at what I'm doing or who I am, then it's either samueljwoods.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Samuel J. Woods. That's it. I got no list to pitch you. I got no product to pitch you. Occasionally I say worthwhile things that are useful for people, but I'm not into the game of doing the chasing.
Man, I've gotten a ton of insights and a ton of value from this. So I appreciate you taking some time to come on and share and talk about your approach to marketing.
Sure. Anytime.
You've been listening to Copy and Conversion with me, Brad Wages. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, you can subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen. For show notes and a transcript of this episode, you can find those and more at bradwages.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.